Come on, living stone. We're gonna go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We're gonna go on and on and on. Come on, living stone.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
The lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march to
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
come on, living
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Hello and welcome back to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to everything Livingston Football Club and Scottish football. My name is Angus and today I'm joined by Euan. Euan, how are you doing?
I'm all good, mate. All good. For our listeners, I've been having a few mic issues. You might have noticed on the last couple of episodes. I've not sounded quite as irritating, probably because I'm a little bit quieter, if anything. But I've managed to get a microphone situation sorted, so you can hear me loud and clear now. But yeah, good weekend up in Dingwall. Back to winning ways, so all good on that front. What about yourself, mate? How you doing?
Yeah, coming off the back of the weekend after a good win, always a good way to kind of go for it. But yeah, as always, you can find this episode as well as all of our others on your preferred podcast streaming sites. So just search for Talk Livi and follow us and subscribe to ensure you don't miss another episode.
We'll start the episode off by discussing our trip to the Highlands as the Lions return to winning ways against Ross County.
It's the return of What Does Your Fox In? We'll discuss our gripes with the modern game.
And finally, it's a busy week for the Lions, so we'll look ahead to our trip to Perth to take on St Johnstone before we return home to take on Dundee United in midweek.
The Lions made the trip to the Highlands to take on bottom of the table Ross County. In a close contest, a quick-fire double from a horny Bruce Anderson would prove the difference as Livy went back down the A9 with all 3 points. Euan, you made the trip up there. Proved to be a good one, didn't it?
Yeah, very good trip, although we did have a very drunk Andrew Semple, a former host on this podcast, in the car for the duration of the journey. If anyone has Andy on Twitter, you might have seen he got poleaxed in the celebrations for the second goal and managed to scrape his knee and his hand open. I just remember looking along the road and just seeing his hand was bright red because it was bleeding that much. So, yeah, Andy had a good day. Let's put it that way. But no, it was good to get back to winning.
Trouble yet again, honestly.
Yeah. Also, apologies.
Guys having an eventful season.
Yeah, I know. Apologies to the stewards at Ross County as well, because there's a couple of them that had their ears chewed off by Andy. Now, I'd like to make it very clear I'm not responsible for him when he's in that state. He is out on his own. So, but I would like to apologise. In particular, one girl called Chloe, who Andy developed an obsession with over the course of the 90 minutes of the game. But anyway, to talk about the actual game itself, it was.
I think the listeners want to know all about Andy's escapades. You know, I think we could have like a segment that's just featuring on this one guy's kind of jaunts through every town.
Nobody wants to know. The best way I can describe him on Saturday is a wasp. That's the best way I can describe him. But no, to go on about the game. So first of all, kind of starting 11, saw us start a typical kind of 4-3-3, but we mentioned it. Stephen Bradley got his first start for the club. Stephen Kelly was playing a little bit further forward in that front three to start with as well. And Omiyonga was back in the team, another one we mentioned last week. What were your thoughts on the starting 11, first of all, Angus?
I think it's very much what we wanted to see. In regards of that midfield, missing Holt and Pittman. I think we spoke about it how it was massively missed in that game against Motherwell, and having somebody of the quality of Omiyonga on the bench, it just didn't seem, quite right in that instance. Going away to play Ross County, and you think, you needed to have that bit of steel, but you also needed that bit of quality, and Omiyonga brings that, and I was very, very delighted to see that to him come in. Also, Stephen Bradley as well. I think we've lambasted over the last couple of weeks about how, we've not had any kind of real options to change things in an attacking sense. To be able to bring him in and, for him to make the impact that he did as well was, absolutely tremendous to see. So, yeah, before the game, just very encouraging to see, a couple of more bodies coming in, those faces that, the fans maybe kind of wanted to see, coming into the squad. But yeah, and what were your thoughts yourself?
Yeah, well, I'd said I'd like to see Bradley into the side. From what I saw in the 45 minutes he had against Motherwell, he offered something a little bit different, a bit more direct, and he certainly provided that. We'll get on to talk about his first assist for the club. And again, with Omiyonga, it was just felt we were lacking that little bit of bite in the middle of the park, and I thought Omiyonga was terrific on Saturday as well. And it was that tenacity and drive that I think we probably missed in the Motherwell game from having the likes of Holt and Pittman missing, because we're so used to, over the last few years with our midfield, always having that kind of bite factor to it. And, going back to the team that won League One, you had like the likes of Byrne, Pittman, Keegan, Jacobs in there as well, and kind of going further forward as well. It's always been much of a muchness in terms of the style of our midfield, and we lacked that in the last couple of games, I felt, when Holt and Pittman had been missing. But yeah, the first half was quite a close affair, I would say. But if anything, I sat at half-time speaking to guys I went up to the game with, and I thought we probably edged the first half. Anyway, I thought we looked the more likely to create something in the first 45 minutes. Both Bruce Anderson and Omiyonga had efforts that were blocked. Ross County had a kind of half chance of Woody Edwards put one just past Jamal George's post, and Anderson had another one that was blocked when he got in behind. Of course, we'll need to mention VAR. It played its part once again. Brilliant play by Bruce Anderson to take the ball down, chop back out wide and roll in Andrew Shinnie. We thought we were 1-0 up right before half-time, but it's the tightest of tightest offside calls you'll probably see this season. It looks like a bit of Andrew Shinnie's sleeve is offside. Well taken, though, by Andrew Shinnie, but he would go on to play his part against former rivals, ex-Inverness man, obviously. So, but yeah, second half, James Penrice had an effort from the edge of the box, probably should do a wee bit better with. But I think the opening stages of the second half, we actually probably took the lead against the run of play, I would say. Ross County had, I would say, 3 brilliant opportunities to take the lead. Callahan's had a chance, which he's put straight at Jamal George. Cancola's one is probably the one that's the glaring opportunity, when he's managed to step inside and he's put it past the post. And I think Keith Watson had an effort which Jamal George has tipped over the bar. But we mentioned about Ross County in the build-up to the game, Angus, how they're the lowest scorers in the league, and I think that's come back to haunt them, where they've had opportunities, they have been on top for a spell in the game, and we then took the lead. Bradley's brought the ball down in the middle of the park, played in Nicky Devlin. He's probably got a wee bit lucky that the ball's fallen back to him, but he's played Bradley out wide, and it's a great cutback, and it looks like a tap-in, but it's actually a brilliant finish by Bruce, because the ball's probably slightly behind him, and he's had to almost hook his foot round it. And I think the guys on Sports Scene even mentioned that there's guys on the line, if he doesn't lift that ball, he's probably had his shot blocked. So it's actually a really good finish by Bruce, and scenes in the away end were fantastic, but we got that quick fire second to really punish Ross County for their missed opportunities. And the second goal doesn't happen without the pass from Andrew Shinnie. Shinnie's a player that gets a bit of criticism off some of our fans. I think a best way to describe him, he's probably a bit Marmite. I'm probably in the category that sees the benefits of Andrew Shinnie in that his experience. You can see he's played at a higher level. His use of the ball is always very good. He's intelligent. And I think, to talk about his spell at Livi, Davey, when he signed him, said he can play anywhere across the midfield and up top. And probably where he's fallen foul off is the fact that he's so versatile and he's never got a run of games in one position at Livi. He's always been asked to do a job out on the left or out on the right, or as a false nine or centre midfield. He's never got a run of games in one position. But I think that shows you how good a player he's been for the squad, and that he can always do a job somewhere for us. And the pass he plays for Bruce Anderson, obviously phenomenal pass. And Bruce has been really clever. He's kept the defender moving, kept the ball moving, and it's a fantastic finish as well. Fired across low into the far corner, and again, brilliant scenes in the way end, as we described. A couple of injuries were sustained as well, but we thought we might have to hang on a little bit. Ross County obviously had their goal disallowed for offside. It was a little bit more clear cut. It was Callaghan who was offside in the initial instance. Jordan White, ex-Livy player, didn't get his goal against us, but Bruce had an opportunity right at the death as well to get his hat-trick, but Ross Laidlaw's made a save with his feet. But I think it's a hard-earned 3 points. First half, I think we probably edged it, but I do think we probably took the lead against the run of play second half. But we were clinical. That was the best way I could probably put it. We were clinical. We took our chances when we got them in the second half and really punished Ross County.
Looking kind of like the highlights and stuff like that, seems to be a fair assessment. A couple of those chances that Ross County misses, quite criminal in all honesty. The one I think Cancole in particular, when I think he beats the man in the box and then fires wide, was absolutely criminal, and Ross County will be kicking themselves for it. And I think that's been the story of their season for the most part. As for us, it's good to see us, getting 3 points away from home, digging in, and getting ourselves over the line in that kind of fashion. We're still looking to bring in, get more bodies back fit, especially, in an attacking sense, to properly take games to them. I think you were looking at this wee run of games and thinking, is this going to be an instance of, we're dropping silly points here where, quite a comfortable lead, quite a comfortable position before the World Cup break, could be, squandered in a way if we'd dropped points to Ross County there or even lost the game, which we could have with those kind of chances that were against us. You'd have a lot of people who would be, looking behind them rather than looking forward, and that just is the nature of this league right now. Is you look at the points picked up, even a draw is taking you up further in the league and stuff like that as well. So it is very important to be taking advantage of these chances when you've got them. Playing bottom of the league, you should be expecting to take the 3 points playing bottom of the league, but nothing. It's not guaranteed against Ross County because they are quite a solid team and they can punish you. I think it's going to be interesting for them if they're going to be able to bring in anybody in January to help them, get rid of that kind of problem and in front of goal. But a clean sheet, 3 points away from home, I don't think we can have too many complaints about it, and hopefully we can continue to get our squad back to full fitness and really push on to try and solidify ourselves in that top six and maybe even try and open up a gap. I mean, you look at these next two games, you'll be looking two more tough games that are coming up, but also ones that are very much winnable as well, and that could end up taking us, give us a little bit of leeway in there and continue to create a bit of a gap. But yeah, very, very positive to see. I guess there would be one negative to come from, well, I guess it's somewhat of a negative to come from that day, and it would turn out to be Marvin Bartley's last game as assistant manager for us as he departs for Queen of the South. He was in the dugout and stuff like that for us. Took part in that last match, and it was announced on social media and stuff that he was taking the vacant position down in Dumfries. I think me and you have had the absolute privilege of speaking to Marv on this podcast before, and he goes with nothing but the best of wishes from us. Absolutely tremendous servant from us. He's one of two captains to lead us out into a cup final at Hampden Park. That season that we finished fifth. It was cut short during COVID. It was absolutely tremendous. The COVID season, brilliant. And just an absolute brilliant ambassador for the club, with all the external stuff there, taking care of the kind of player welfare kind of stuff and that as well. I think that's the thing for us as well. We're not only losing, a great coach, but just a great individual at the club.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest tinge of sadness about the entire day is Marvin Bartley moving on. As you mentioned, we had Marvin on the podcast during lockdown, and anyone who hasn't listened to any interview with Marvin, I encourage you to go and do it. He's brilliant character, some brilliant stories about his career, but he did mention in that he was looking forward to getting into coaching, and it was certainly an avenue he was looking to go down. And look, Livi have been very good for a number of coaches in recent times. You know, just going through a list, Tony Craig has gone down to Newcastle. I think he's down there now. Liam Fox has now got the top job at Dundee United. Dougie Imrie came in. Granted, maybe Dougie was a bit shorter term, but he's gone on, got a top job at Greenock Morton, doing a fantastic job there. And now Marvin's got a job at Queen of the South now too. So, you know, I think for anyone who might look to take up a coaching role at the club, I think it's quite an easy sell for Davy to say to guys, look at the list of guys who have gone on to other things. And look, Marvin's, as you said, he's been a brilliant ambassador for the football club. I think when we signed him from Hibs, there was so many Hibs fans saying they can't believe they were letting Marvin go. And to be honest, at the time, he was probably quite a big coup for the club. He was a well-recognised name in kind of Scottish football at that point. And obviously giving him that opportunity to get into coaching with the reserves to start with, and then obviously stepping up to assistant manager. But fantastic player in the 2 seasons he was on the pitch for us. As you say, one of 2 men that have led the team out at Hampden for a cup final, and then stepping in, you know, probably not the easiest scenario when he's been a player in that dressing room to then go in and essentially coaching a lot of these guys. It's probably quite a daunting step up for him, but certainly from all the tweets and things like that I saw afterwards, I think the players were fantastic with him in terms of making that step up. But absolutely delighted for Marvin. In a way, I'm also absolutely gutted that we're losing him, but obviously wish him the best wishes, and I'm sure Davy will be on the phone to him offering players to go out and loan at Queen of the South, so it's another avenue for our players to maybe go and get a bit of game time as well, because they will obviously have that close relationship. But to get back to the game itself, Angus, was there anyone who really stood out for you? I certainly thought the 2 centre halves had a good afternoon, and Fitzwater and Morgan Boys, I thought they were very good. As I mentioned, Omiyonga, I think, made a big difference in the middle of the park as well.
Being restricted to kind of just like the kind of the highlights, not able to make the game there. I think I've seen like a lot of kind of praise there for that midfield duo, even like the Omiyonga and Shinnie. I think that they two were, you know, kind of singled out for, you know, a wee bit more quality on the ball. And as you said, what you were talking about Shinnie earlier, you know, seemed to be like spot on about it. What he offers, I think, sometimes goes very much underappreciated because of, I think, the reputation that he has. So I think it's good to see that, you know, him playing, you know, better in this game, you know, hasn't gone under the radar and people haven't just kind of like brushed it aside. And I think, you know, hopefully that's something that can, you know, if he can continue, you know, playing in that one kind of position, maybe we'll start to see a wee bit more of that as well.
Yeah, as I kind of already said my piece about Andrew Shinnie and the impact he had on the game, but yeah, I thought Omiyonga made a big difference. It was interesting. I thought Davy made almost a very slight tactical tweak at half time, and it looked like we went almost 3 in behind Bruce, and Shinnie played a bit further forward as almost a 10 in that scenario, and Omiyonga sat with Sean Kelly. And again, Davy made a little tweak in shape as well when he went to a back 3 later on. So despite the maybe lack of options that we had on the bench, he still managed to tweak things here and there to try and get the desired result, which was fantastic. And delighted we're back to winning ways, and hopefully we can carry that on into our next couple of games as well. For the first time in 2023, we bring you What Does Your Fox In, where we put the footballing world to rights. Angus, what does your Fox in?
I actually think I've seen this on Twitter, you know, a couple of days ago, to be fair. And it's something that I do always find quite strange, and it's when teams are in the tunnel, and it doesn't matter what kind of game it is. It can be, you know, very important matches, not so important matches, big rivalries, heated games and all of that. And everybody's kind of like gearing themselves up. And I don't know, it's quite strange, you know, I don't know if it's like just because it's the same position or that, but goalkeepers are just always like just such pals with each other. And I I don't know, maybe it's because I yearn for the days where, like Roy Keane and stuff like that, where like in the tunnel and that, like just focused on the game and that. I'm just not a fan of seeing, players like in the tunnel, like hugging each other and all that. And it's just even strange with goalkeepers and that they feel they need to, oh, well, they're both goalkeepers, oh, we both need to be pals. Like, no, it's like, just get on with the game. Like, these aren't that special. Like, there's a reason these are goalkeepers in all honesty. But,
Shamal George, I'd like to point out that you could probably still pass a ball much better than me and Angus combined. So,
that's a given to be fair. But it's just always a strange one that they're always just like, oh, like there's always like a special bond between them. Like you don't see like opposition like left backs and that like going and like hugging each other and being like, oh, how's it going and stuff like that. It's I don't know. I just feel like it's a strange kind of thing, and I feel like it just keeps on like getting more and more prominent as like the years go on as well. I don't know, mate. It's just wanting to cling on to those kind of moments from late 90s, early 2000s, where the teams in the tunnel aren't even like daring to like look at each other, but you've got two goalkeepers who are like all wishing each other the best of luck and all that. It's like, no, we don't want that.
yeah, a goalkeeper is a funny position because it's the one position in football that has a union,
Yeah.
and they all seem. I think they must pay some sort of membership fee to join the union. Maybe we need to ask Callum Brown. He was a below average goalkeeper back in the day, and he might be able to tell us if he still pays his union fee. Because see, when we criticise a goalkeeper in our group chat, he's very quick to be on the defensive about a goalkeeper. So I believe he must still have the subscription for the goalkeepers union. But yeah, I think I would go. Yours is obviously fairly specific to goalkeepers, but like I had a Does Your Fox and many moons back where they were covering their mouth when they're having a chat after a
Yeah.
game and stuff like that and acting really pally and like where's the competitiveness there? As you say, we've grown up in an era with like Roy Keane and Patrick Vieira trying to scrap in the tunnel and things like that famous incident at Highbury many, many moons ago. And yeah, I wish there was that competitiveness back in football. Like, remember Stuart Lovell when he was on the podcast talking about Colin Cameron, walking down the tunnel, going, can't believe we got beat by that lot, and things like that. You want a bit of that back. You don't want everyone giving each other a hug prior to a game. Nah, get the competitive edge on, and leave that where the fans can't see it, because we want to think that our players are going into battle mode when they go onto the pitch. So yeah, I do get that, and goalkeepers are a funny bunch. But my what does your fox in, Angus, is it's very specific, right? As quite a lot of mine are. It's tiny little things which probably shouldn't annoy people, but they certainly annoy me.
I feel like this segment always comes up because you've just stumbled upon something that you're just like, oh, that's really great. My gears in the day.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I've been planning this What Does Your Fox in for about 3 weeks now. And it was after I was at Celtic Park. And it's the issue for me is football chants to Christmas songs. It really does my fox in. I'll be honest with you now. It started off with Celtic fans going, Merry Christmas, fuck the insert sectarian abuse. And then it got to the end of the game and it was last Christmas I gave you my heart, but I gave it to Postecoglou. Just insert random player or manager's name that fits in with the song. Then, what made it even worse, Angus, right? Maybe in the week before Christmas, right, you can go, right, forgive them, festive spirit and all that. But then the midweek game with St Mirren on the 28th, so 3 days after Christmas. Christmas is now 362 days away, right? In my eyes. Christmas is done now. And they're singing, I gave it to Mark O'Hara. I'm like, what? What? It's give what to Mark O'Hara? Right?
You don't want to steal that one and change it to Omionga, nah?
No, sorry, C3, if you start that, nah, I'm not accepting it. I'm just not accepting it. I'll be annoyed from the opposite end of the stand. Just, nah. It gets brought out for like a week every year and you hear it at every bloody football ground and it's just like, it's very uncreative in my opinion. And
so is that more the issue is that, the teams are using the exact same one? Would you appreciate it if, there was a wee bit more diversity in the choices. Like, for example, if somebody picked like the one by the darkness or that, can you imagine like a full stand of fans, chanting that, or maybe something like John Lennon's like "War is over." Like, would you?
Yeah,
What
like if
was the
someone
thoughts?
managed to rewrite the Pogues Fairy Tales of New York and make it Livingston themed, I'm absolutely in on that. I'm absolutely all for it. But
Fairy Tale
just
Stone Park.
just the constant insert footballer or manager's name that fits into this song and it's Christmas themed. Just I'm no
But
for it.
is that not football chants in a nutshell? Is that everybody steals? Is there any chant that's like
This is very specific to Christmas though. This is very specific to the Christmas themed chants.
Either there is one that I do like it's from Man U and it's the 12 Cantonas. I don't know if you're familiar.
But
It's
see,
just
that's a bit more creative, right?
yeah.
There's a bit more to it rather than just going, gave you my heart, I gave it to Marco Hara.
As he gets sent off.
Yeah, I know. Give what to Marco Hara? Red card. That's what. But that's my what does your fox in, and I know this probably will annoy 1% of our listeners the same way that it annoys me. So I'm pretty nailed on that you're going to win it this week. But I just like to get my gripes out there, and it's like a therapy session when you get these little rants. But Angus, just a reminder for our listeners: what does your fox in?
The goalkeeper union in the tunnels, I guess.
Goalkeeper union in the tunnel. I like that. I might be able to fit that in 25 characters, right? And
Sneaky, I guess.
and my what does your fox in is Christmas themed football chants. So guys, we'll put up a poll during the week. Let us know your thoughts. And yeah, I pretty much assume Angus will win at this one, but I just like to get our thoughts out there. But yeah, we'll do this again at some point during the season because it's always a good laugh.
Next up for the Lions, they're on the road again, but this time it's a trip to Perth to take on St Johnstone. Euan, how do you feel about this one?
McDermott Park. What can I say that's positive about McDermott Park?
Colourful.
The steak and chorizo pie. Even though it has a soggy bottom, but it tastes really good. Yeah, we don't tend to have many classics at McDermott Park. To put it bluntly, since we've won promotion, the games tend to be a bit turgid, would be the best way I could describe it at times. But look, it's going to be a difficult game. We kind of touch on that most weeks in this league, and I don't think this is going to be any different. However, looking at St Johnstone's form coming into it, they have lost the last 4 games. In fact, their form's taken a bit of a dip ever since the victory against Rangers before the break. They do look a little bit more of a threat going forward this season, I would say. If you compare them to last year and the number of goals they scored, they've already scored 24 this season. I think that's close to what they scored throughout the entirety of last season. But they do look a little bit looser at the back, having conceded 32. And certainly players that we'll need to keep an eye out for. I think Stevie May's having a productive season. He's scored 4, also assisted 4 this campaign. I think Dre Wright's been a positive addition for them, playing at right wing back as well. And the player I always think kind of keeps them ticking is Melker Hallberg in the middle of the park. I know Ross Gardner, who's been on the podcast before to speak about St Johnstone's, raved about him since he came in from Hibs. So those are a few of the players that we'll need to keep an eye out for. But St Johnstone, you can predict what you're going to get with them. Since Callum Davidson's gone in there, they've been very rigid in terms of playing a 3 at the back or a back 5. And that's not really changed, despite the fact they lost a few kind of key players in the summer in the form of Xander Clark, Sean Rooney, both leaving. Add into that the fact Callum Hendry, who was probably a bit of their saviour last season, moving on to Salford City. So they lost a few key players, but they seem to have kept themselves ticking over a little bit this season, and despite the fact they've had a wee bit of a dip in form, I fully expect a very difficult game. From the highlights that I've seen, I don't think the pitch is looking in the best of nick at McDermott Park, which it doesn't tend to at this time of year. And given the amount of rainfall and frost and whatnot that we've had over the last few weeks, I fully expect it to be a fairly difficult surface to play on. So, yeah, I think it's going to be it's not going to be a pretty game for the neutral. It's not going to be a pretty game for anyone that goes to attend. But hopefully we can grind out a result when we go up there.
In all honesty, we're on like this wee mini tour of, the kind of the dull kind of crap games of the season. St Mirren, Motherwell, Ross County at times as well. To be fair,
I won't hear a bad word said about our trip to Dingwall.
Mainly at home, I will say the home games against Ross County are usually pretty guff. So coming up into this one, I think you know what you're kind of going to be expecting. I think at this moment though, I think we'll be coming into this one a wee bit more confident than usual. I think maybe that win away against Ross County will do us a world of good. I think as well the fact that you've talked about their kind of poor form just there. I think there's a couple of their players are coming in for a wee bit of flack as well. I think one of them's Liam Gordon at the back. Is getting a wee bit of stick and criticism from the support for the kind of displays that are going on just there. So I think you're hoping that we're catching them at a time of unrest as well. I think you've seen the thing on social media about the disappointment with their fans. I think it was at the Scottish Cup game against Celtic or Rangers. I think it might be Celtic. The kind of the ticketing issues and stuff like that. I think that they've obviously opted to to capitalise on the travelling away support and giving them, I think, 2 free stands. Had to shift a number of their home support into just the one main stand. Much to the dismay of some of the supporters. So I think at this moment, we're catching them at a time that could be beneficial for us. I think if we have I think it's very important that we have a bright start. If we can get their fans kind of on them straight away. I think it could be one of those games that it could be quite a bad atmosphere for them to kind of get themselves out of. And I think we've got to kind of go and put our foot go on the front foot immediately. Try and take the game to them. And there's no reason why we shouldn't. I don't think that they're have an abundance of quality that we should be really, really worried about. I think you look at those players who they've lost in the last couple of seasons, who are some of the ones who would say on the podcast are the kind of the danger men. Especially Callum Hendry, as you said. I think St Johnstone fans are absolutely delighted that Nadir Chichi was dreadful last season, and it led to them recalling Callum Hendry. Essentially kept them up, but they're still looking to properly replace his kind of talents up front. As you do say, they have scored more goals this season, but not massively prolific here. But I think St Johnstone are quite the same as us. I think on their day, very much capable of taking points off of anybody in the league, and hopefully this one is a bit better than some of the past ones have been.
Yeah, just talking about some of the threats, and obviously the loss of Callum Hendry. They brought in Nicky Clark in the summer as well, who's a player I've always rated very highly wherever he's been. He's a player I would have liked to have seen at Livi at some point. So he's another one of their kind of danger men, very intelligent forward, Nicky Clark. But yeah, it's one of those games you just kind of know what to expect. I think it's going to be a lot of back to front football. I think the surface will probably dictate that as well. I think be a bit more direct game. We'll need to be very alert on the second balls. We'll use the Motherwell game as a kind of example where we weren't. Now, talking about getting on to second balls, does this cry out for the likes of Pittman and Holt to come back into the side?
I guess you would say so, just because you know what you're going to get from them. The standards that you expect from them. I think we may see. I'm not too sure because so Holt didn't start the game that he was available for because they were appealing the suspension. The performances just there, of Omionga and Shinnie, and that you like to see that as maybe being rewarded in that kind of way. Perhaps you might see that these players will still miss out, Pittman and Holt. Have them on the bench, and then if necessary, we'll play them on Wednesday for the Dundee United game, or Tuesday, whatever day it is. I think to have like a kind of healthy squad, you'd like to see players keep a hold of the jersey. If they've had good performances, which you'd say for sure for like Omionga. So I think it would be harsh to see a couple of the players drop out because of that. But you don't know the freshness of players. You don't know who's carrying what injuries. I would imagine that Sean Kelly's going to start because we'll need him for the defensive corners and stuff like that. A bit of height in defending our own box. So yeah, I think it all depends on who's available in the further forward positions as well. I think Stephen Kelly's been fancied as well recently. Do you still see him put in the wing, or do you replace him with the likes of Pittman, or do you put Shinnie up there and you put Jason Holt in? I think it all just depends on the kind of the game plan that we're going to go for.
Yeah, it certainly freshens up our bench a little bit, doesn't it? Because we had I would say a bit of a lack of options at the weekend there, and hopefully Christian Montano should be back, I would have thought as well. I'm assuming his injury was a concussion related one from the St Mirren game, so it'd be good to get Christian back in there too. Or sorry, the Motherwell game, apologies. So Christian being back in the side as well gives you another option, certainly further forward, or obviously at left back where he's played most of this season. But having Pittman and Holt just kind of freshens up that bench a little bit and adds a few more options for what you can do in the game. Don't know if it's going to be too soon for Newbley to come back into the squad at all. Hopefully he can maybe even make the bench and can feature in the Dundee United game as well. But yeah, it's going to be a very tough game. But if we're looking at pushing towards top six, St Johnstone are one of those teams who most years in recent times have been there or thereabouts in the top six mix. So I think we're going to have to go up there and get a positive result. Angus, do you fancy us for it?
I am going to go for absolutely turgid 0-0. I don't know. It just has one of those games written all over it. To be honest, you look at as you're talking the conditions and all of that. It's just going to be, yeah. I think it's just going to be quite like a slug. It'll be a bit of a drab affair. Maybe the fact a lack of kind of attacking options for herself can come back to haunt us. Seems like that one of those games that Bruce Anderson could possibly be doing a lot of fighting, but not getting an awful lot of service in the box for himself if we don't have the likes of Newbley. But optimistic we can get a victory up there. But I think I'm going to stick with just like a 0-0 at the moment.
I would love to say it's going to be more exciting than that, but I've been to enough games at McDermott Park watching us over the years, and I'm going to go for a back-to-back clean sheets for the Lions. I'm going for a scrappy, as you like, 1-0 win, but back-to-back away wins. We had back-to-back away wins last season when we went Ross County and then St Johnstone Ross County. So yeah, I'm going for a wee back-to-back win, but I'm not expecting an entertainment-filled afternoon up at McDermott Park. That brings us on to our midweek game next week, which is our rearranged game from just before Christmas against Dundee United. I think it's safe to say we're probably catching Dundee United at the wrong time, isn't it?
Yeah, but I don't think anybody could have predicted, how bad they would have been at the start of the season. I think under Jack Ross, I don't think you would have expected them to capitulate in quite the way that they did. Obviously, they suffered that heavy blow in the Europa Conference League kind of qualifying, but they just never ever recovered from that. That's epitomised by that defeat against Celtic, the 9-0. Obviously, Celtic are a great team, but to have that many taken off you is, something else, to be honest. But they're still sitting 11th in the league at the moment. Just coming off a loss against Rangers, but wins against St Johnstone, wins against Ross County, and then I think a draw with Hearts as well. Yeah, I think any improvement to their form, wouldn't have been too hard, considering their form for the most part of 2022 just there. But I think you're looking at them coming into a wee bit more of the Dundee United team that you would expect them to have. I mean, you're looking at that squad, and it's absolutely baffling to think of them being in 11th place. In all honesty, a lot of kind of recognisable names there. I think as well, they're a team who are a bit kind of inconsistent. I think they've had a couple of times though where they've picked up a decent result and then not really kicked on. Put us out of the cup early on this season. I don't think that really gave them the kick-off that they kind of expected to. I think they had quite a heavy win over Kilmarnock as well or something. No.
Yeah, they had two 4-0 wins at home against Aberdeen and Kilmarnock before the break.
Yeah. So you look at kind of games like that, and it seems to be kind of one-offs that they're kind of performing in. I think this that kind of run of form that I've just said there, with 2 wins and a draw and a loss in their last four, is probably one of their best runs of form of the season. In all honesty, hopefully, that loss to Rangers has maybe put them back into a wee bit of what they're kind of used to for the most part of this season. But yeah, I don't think we should go into this game expecting an easy ride, or that it shouldn't be fooled by their position in the table. I think they're a decent side, and they've certainly got players who could hurt us on the day. So we've got to apply ourselves as best as we can, and hopefully get revenge for putting us out of the cup earlier this season.
Yeah, certainly that was Liam Fox's first game in the dugout, wasn't it? It was so amazing how football throws these things up all the time, but first game back in the dugout for Dundee United was at our place, and he obviously came away with the victory on the day as well, but we didn't really turn up, especially first 45 minutes that evening. It's better second 45, but probably left ourselves a little bit too much to do. But as you say, I find it quite astonishing with the level of quality that they have in amongst their squad, that they were sitting in that position at this point in the season. And going right through, Boy Behic was very good at the World Cup for Australia, very impressive, I thought, in the games that I saw him play. Then they've got quality. We know what Craig Sibbald brings to the team, big fans' favourite with ourselves over the time he was at Livingston. Dylan Levitt, I think, is playing probably levels below what he could be in his career, and he's one of our most creative players this season. I think he's scored 4 and assisted 4 as well, or something along those lines this campaign. And then they've got 2 forwards who you would expect to score goals in this league, and Stephen Fletcher and Tony Watt, both sitting on 4 goals for the season as well. So, and Glenn Middleton plays in behind them quite a lot, who again is a live wire and can create a moment of magic here and there. So they've got players in their side that you would expect them to be doing a lot better. But I think outside looking in, I think Liam Fox has kind of steadied the ship a little bit. I think the players responded to him a lot last season when he was assistant to Tam Courts, and obviously had a very successful campaign, finishing 4th in the league. So I think he's gradually getting his ideas across over the spell that he has been the main man in the hot seat at Tannadice. And I'm delighted to see Liam Fox doing well, because he's a Livingston legend in that very difficult period for the club. Yeah, I think it's going to be a very difficult game. But if the game was maybe at Tannadice, I'd be a little bit more fearful of it, because their form's quite night and day between home and away this season. Their win at St Johnstone was actually their first win away from home in the league this campaign. So yeah, I would be a little bit more fearful going to Tannadice, even though we've been up there and won the last couple of times we've been there. But I think it'll be, again, once a very tough game, but we shouldn't be scared of them, because we've already went and beaten them this season, and that was off the back of them beating EZ Alkmaar. So we've got the quality, and again, as we mentioned for the St Johnstone game, we've got options back available, hopefully, for these 2 games coming up, which should give us a little bit more variety in terms of how we can maybe change the game if we need to.
I think for us as well, one of the big factors is, if we have Joe Newbley back, I think a lot of our optimisms are, kind of doubled, in all honesty. And I think something like that, you're looking at those kind of players you're needing to come in and do the job against a team like Dundee United. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with it. I think that's very funny to look at the 2 games this season. We beat them after they beat AZ Alkmaar, and then got beat off of them after them getting beat 9-0 off of Celtic. It's wild to look at it in that way.
It's so Livingston. It's just so Livingston.
So coming off a 2-0 loss against Rangers, who knows what that predicts. But what are you going to go for, Euan?
Oh, am I being overly confident after 1 win? Probably. I'm going to go for another clean sheet for Livy. I'm going to go for another 1-0. I'm going to go 1-0 Livy once again. Back-to-back 1-0s, but I don't think either of them are going to be classics. What about yourself?
I think I went a wee bit pessimistic with a 0-0 draw against St Johnstone. I'll go for a 2-1 win here, maybe echoing last season's game, where I think it was like a late own goal that won us the match. I think hopefully maybe something similar to that will do us through. We'll come away from these 2 games unbeaten with at least 4 points.
I think that would be a pretty decent return, in all honesty, for for the next couple of games. But yeah, let us know your thoughts on the prediction front. On the day of the game, we always put our predictions up, so let us know your thoughts going forward. But hopefully we can get a good following up in Perth at the weekend. That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. Thanks again to every single one of you for tuning in, week week out. If you can, we'd love to hear your feedback. Either leave us a review on iTunes or simply message us on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram.
As Euan said, we're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, so search Talk Livi to find us and you'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there as well. You can also find all our episodes, including this one, on all good podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, so don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week, and thanks again to all our listeners for tuning in. Let's hope for another great week following the Lothian's finest football team.
Livingston, oh Livingston, into that brand